Bad.
अरे यार मेरे को फोकस करता है
यार
अरे क्या करते हैं अरे तेरे को वहाँ आगे मैं आज नहीं आ रही हूँ एक बार होमवर्क करके आना है मैं तो सारे कुछ करके
मैं गलती नहीं करती
भाई वो ऑनलाइन की बात क्या उससे ना एक ही होमवर्क करता है बाद में बात करना भी सबको बात आपके सामने है अच्छा वहाँ जाएंगे ब्लॉग्स समझ में क्या मैंने भी किया मैं बोल रहा हूँ आपको कि आप घर के सामने
उस दिन बर्थडे पार्टी में
भाई 10
बेटा इधर निकाल रहा है
बेटा
नाम नहीं है
तो तुम लेके आ जा क्या कर रहे हैं
अरे छुपाया क्यों ना है नाम नहीं छुपाया और पाउच को मतलब बैग में रख दिया पाउच भी नहीं हमारे बट के लिए हाथ नहीं लिया हमारे कुछ तो अरे पाउच नहीं लिया अबे नहीं मैं
भाई सामान भी बेल बंदी है
अरे भाई तेरी कसम मेरी
दिखा तो सीख रहा है
अरे वो घर में क्या आ गया हो गया मैंने तेरे को बैग उठ चलूंगा अरे इधर से घर में क्या आ गया लेकिन आई चेडी के रह गई यार वो फिर तो दे दी वापस तो घर ही लेके जाऊंगा
पानी भी रहा है
मुझे नहीं देना पानी तुम कुछ किया तो तुम सॉरी तुमने किया तो क्या नहीं अब तो कहना पड़ेगा क्या पानी आपसे देखा नहीं पड़ेगा बाबा भी अलग से मार रहे हैं अरे कसम से बैठे यार की पेरेंट्स से तो अगर क्या कर सकते
started to be around I think we started after the start. We have to take volume with you. You have your volume with you. I think the same thing is in my textbook also. You'll have to check with the table. In case of nutrition, you'll have to check with the table. Check out. After what we will learn is, after we were talking about the three major nutrients. No, the other day we talked about three major nutrients. What are the three major nutrients? Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. The three major nutrients are carbohydrate. Who is online? Is anybody online there? Huh? Yes, I did see.
That's cool.
But last time you said you last year nutrition. कल है एग्जाम. So nutrition first thing is primary nutrients. What are the primary nutrients? Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So we had already studied about the carbohydrates. So when I talk about carbohydrates, what did we learn the other day? We learned that carbohydrates can be of certain categories. Monosaccharides. What example of monosaccharides? One example for that. One example of saccharides. Saccharides.
Sucrose and fructose. That's all.
So now when we are talking about fructose, what types of carbohydrate? Monosaccharide. Lactose, disaccharide, starch, glycogen. What is the difference between starch and glycogen? One difference between starch and glycogen. Glycogen is
Saved in liver.
stored form of sugar in animal cells. Starch is stored form of sugar in plant cells. We studied about the one function of protein. What is the proteins to be in our body? What if we learn? Proteins help in growth and repair. Proteins help in maintenance. What does fats help in? One function of fats. Providing energy. Now, which type of nutrient, carbohydrate or fats provide more energy? Fats. Fats provide more energy, but fats process of breakdown and release of energy is a lengthier process as compared to carbohydrate. But if I talk about one molecule of carbohydrate or 1 mole of carbohydrate, 1 mole of fat releases much more energy than 1 mole of carbohydrate. We should remember that. But yes, like as we talk about glucose, immediately it can get broken down to reduce energy. No, a molecule of fatty acid immediately it cannot get broken down. First, it has to get converted into some form of carbohydrate and then it starts releasing energy. So that was the first part of the chapter. Now we talk about some disorders associated with primary nutrient deficiencies. Disorders associated with primary nutrient deficiencies. So related with this, what are the disorders we talk about? Kwashiorkor. And the second is marasmus. Now this you have to just go through the symptoms and based on that only you get questions in your paper. 2 symptoms, 2 differences, age groups, or something like that. So when we are talking about Kwashiorkor, underline in your book or the volume, whatever you have got. Kwashiorkor. So when we are talking about Kwashiorkor, which age group? Kwashiorkor. Which age group of people? Young children. Underline. So these are some of the major differences that we have to remember. So when we are talking about Kwashiorkor, Kwashiorkor generally affects young children. What type of deficiencies? Carbohydrate, protein, fats, both, all of them. Carbohydrate, proteins, fats. So majorly when we are talking about Kwashiorkor, Kwashiorkor is majorly associated with young children. Kwashiorkor is majorly due to the deficiency of carbohydrate, protein, and fat deficiencies in the diet for a long time. Symptoms. Take those symptoms now. What are some of the most common symptoms that you should write? There are a large number of symptoms mentioned in your book. Some important symptoms. Number 2, protruding belly. I'm talking about Kwashiorkor. Protruding belly. Protruding belly means in this group of children, number 1, their height will be stunted and the stomach will be swollen. Swollen stomach. So how can you underweight? No, the underweight meaning what? When you are talking about a normal weight, वो मास्क पहन के आता है जर्म्स के लिए नहीं, उसका हंसी को छुपाने के लिए। एक तो बोला भाई क्यों नहीं आ रहा,
बता दें इसको क्या
वो हफ्ते पे नहीं आ रहा ना। Now, when we are talking about protruding belly, now underweight does not mean that since the individual has protruding belly, underweight meaning as per the age, the weight is not sufficient. And a particular region of the body is overgrown, obviously that will not manage with the weight, no. So that's the first symptom, very important that you have to write when you are asked in the paper. Protruding belly. Next is stunted growth. What is the meaning of stunted growth? Growth is as not normal as compared to the age. Stunted growth. Repeated diarrhea, enlarged liver anemia. That's again a very, very important symptom that is enlarged liver and anemia. You know what is anemia? Anemia is a condition where a person has got a very low count of RBCs and hence a very low amount of hemoglobin. If the hemoglobin is very low in our body, what will be the problem? Less oxygen supply to tissues and less energy. So oxygen supply हमारे tissues में होना, adequate होना बहुत जरूरी है. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. Quite a number of times we may collapse all of a sudden. So when we are talking about hemoglobin at a particular amount should be there in our body and oxygen supply should be adequate. So one of the most important symptoms. Okay, now the last important symptom you have is edema. Edema. So these are the four most important symptoms that you should remember. What I said, I'll repeat again: protruded belly, stunted growth, enlarged liver and anemia, and diarrhea. I'm sorry, edema. So edema means overall body is swelled up. It's not because of health. When we understand, say suppose a 4-year-old, 5-year, 3-4-year-old children, if they are healthy and plump, we can understand. But if the body is disproportionately swollen, then also we can understand. No? You may talk about a child, 3-4-year-old, where you come that the face is round or the hands are round. We understand that's healthy. But quite a number of times you come into the face is unnaturally swollen. The feet, force of gravity, so high. So now that we are talking about the hands and the feet, unnaturally swollen. So if that is the condition, that is what we call it as edema. Edema. That is what is edema. Come up with marasmus. What is one of the most important symptoms? Number one, less body weight is a common thing that you come across in both. Next is degeneration. Resulting in weak muscles, degeneration of the muscles and growth, degeneration of bones and muscles. Second point, degeneration of bones and muscles is a common symptom that we understand. Next is skin becomes folded. Skin becomes folded. कौन सा पेज में क्या हो रहा है कुछ पता ही नहीं है. अरे तुम शर्माना छोड़ो, तुम एक पेंसिल लो हाथ में, keep noting down. Now next is the skin becomes folded. When does the skin become folded? Otherwise, naturally, normally skin fold होता है क्या कभी? Only elderly people, no, become a person. I'm talking about my grandmother, कभी normally someone's skin will develop folds. But यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? Young children is developing folds on the skin. That's unnatural, no? That's abnormal, no? So that is why does that happen? Because of the deficiency of the nutrients. Second point, retardation of physical and mental retardation. What do you understand about physical retardation? Physical retardation किसे कहते हैं?
Is not enough.
Not enough. So retardation मतलब something less than normal, no retarding. And physical retardation तो है ही. On top of that, mental retardation. When do you understand that somebody is having mental retardation?
They don't understand the normal terms, which normal. They don't understand. Their brain is not that.
Coordination is not proper. The brain is not as mature along with the as per the age. No, the brain is not mature as per the age. If that is the condition, we say that is mental retardation. And the ribs appear prominent. Ribs appearing prominent. If at all, We have come across certain children that because of the massive lack of nutrients in their body, they may be having legs and arms which are functional. But first of all, the growth is very stunted. And on top of that, the chest region, if you see, it is just ribs. You can count the ribs that they have. It's a solid state. So now that we are talking about, even if you are thin, you will not be able to count your ribs. Even if you are thin, you will not be able to count your ribs because you don't have nutritional deficiency. You are a healthy individual. But if I'm talking about this type of individuals, they will have wrinkled skin and some parts of their body, something like swollen. But the ribs can be, because there is no muscle growth proper. No, there is no proper muscle growth, no proper bone growth. So take this 4 important symptoms I asked you. Whenever you are asked to write down the differences, and you are often asked in your paper, write differences between Kwashiorkor and Magnesium. That's a common question that you will get in the paper. No, when you are talking about infants is in marasmus is in infants. Yes, but now is at 5 years of age. Marasmus. So now both of them taken in the starting of the child. Marasmus एकदम preliminary age में एकदम young individual infants. But Kwashiorkor is not in infants. Kwashiorkor is majorly in the young children. Young children. It may not happen. If I'm talking about Kwashiorkor, a child may be still okay by the age of 1 and 2. And the symptoms may start developing at the age of 6 years. But marasmus you can easily identify by the time the child is 1 to 2 years. But it is temporarily provided all the growth supplements and everything is given at the adequate time.
But if the brain is not developed, how will it develop?
The brain is not developing, mental retardation cannot be that much corrected because it is related with hormones. And at the time of the growth in the mother's womb, the mother was not having the adequate amount of hormones and nutrients. That's the reason this type of state in the child. So that much cannot be corrected. But if it is not a mental retardation and a little bit of growth supplements, growth supplements can little bit bring about the normal process of muscle and bone growth.
But when it has to happen because of mother has doesn't have adequate.
Quite a number of times we come across this child who is born very, very lean and very, very weak. With enough amount of medical help and nutrient supply, yes, this child can become or show a well-developed vigor and growth. But mental retardation, that's the reason they will come across. They become health-wise or physically they become healthy. But mentally, they may not be able to cope up because mental growth, most of the time, gets finished to some extent in the period of conception when we are in our mother's womb. And then, in the first few 1 to 2 years' time, quite a lot of mental development happens. So, mental retardation, that part actually cannot be corrected much. Now we talk about 2 words. Macronutrients and micronutrients. What is the difference between these? When we are talking about macronutrients and micronutrients, macronutrients are those type of nutrients which are needed in large amounts in our diet. Macronutrients, nutrients which are needed in large amounts in our diet, and that would be carbohydrates, proteins and fats. And micronutrients are nutrients which are needed in trace amounts, in small amounts in our body. But even if that is not there, even though that small amount is not there, we may start suffering from various different type of disorders, deficiency disorders. So micronutrient would include variety of vitamins that we understand and minerals that we understand. Can you name 1 or 2 minerals and 1 or 2 vitamins? Are you aware? Can you name 1 or 2 vitamins?
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Vitamin B12, vitamin D, vitamin C. Minerals? Iron, phosphorus, sodium, chloride, calcium, all these. So when we are talking about variety of minerals and vitamins which are also present in so many different types of fruits, vegetables, green leaves, Even though in trace amount that is needed, but that also is very much necessary for our proper function. We'll start with this table now. This part of the chapter, you will straight away read from the table. Let us check the first table, the macronutrient. Check the table, macronutrient. Macronutrient. Check the table, macronutrient. Now the macronutrient, first of all, we talk about macronutrients. Now, when we are talking about macronutrients and micronutrients, yeah, I said primarily when we are talking about macro and micro, we understand carbohydrate, proteins, and fats. But this category also, now that I talk about vitamins and minerals, here also we have to understand that some of them are needed in large amounts and some are needed in more amounts. Something like, if I start talking about minerals, I may understand, can the minerals can be again categorized as macro and micro? Yes, where I would understand something like calcium and phosphorus is needed in large amounts. What will we compare here? What will we say here? Calcium and phosphorus, so far minerals are concerned, are considered as macronutrients. जब हम ये दो कैटेगरी को सेपरेट करना चाहते हैं, then we have to say carbohydrate, proteins, and fats we need in large amounts, some in 100 grams and some in 150 grams like that per meal. But this one, less than 1 milligrams, less than 1 grams. That much is enough to bring about the normal functioning of our body. And there are also so many of them are there. But now I want to categorize minerals only. Now I want to categorize vitamins only. Then I will come across minerals may be, कुछ minerals ऐसे हैं which we require in large amounts and कुछ ऐसे हैं which we require in small amounts. So that way if I talk about calcium, phosphorus, sodium, these are required in large amounts. So that comes under the category of macro. And if I talk about, say suppose manganese, and if I talk about zinc and all, these are necessary in small amount, then they should be categorized as micro. So that's a simple concept. Let us start with some of the most important ones. Calcium. Calcium. Now, यहाँ पे क्या पढ़ना है? Food sources are quite a number of them overlapping. Now that you are going to come across food sources, इसमें ये देखोगे कि एक ही food source उसमें 4 तरह के nutrients हैं. The food sources that we eat, it is not that only one food source, one nutrient. एक particular food source. Now I talk about cabbage. Cabbage में तो carbohydrate भी है, roughage भी है, so many different type of minerals भी हैं, vitamins भी हैं. So food sources overlapping होगा. I will come across. But by the time you complete reading the table, you will get a fair idea of कौन से वाले nutrient, कौन से वाले food stuff. But what is most important that you have to take a note while you study this is which type of nutrient के साथ which type of deficiency disorder. That is specific. Calcium related disorder is only for calcium. Like that, huh? So let us start. Calcium. What is some of the sources? See there, dietary foods. Dietary foods, you understand? Dairy foods. Dairy foods. So dietary foods or dairy foods meaning we talk about the milk products basically. And then beans, cabbage, or the functions. Take the function column and the deficiency symptom column up there to give you an idea that this is what you have to take a note when you study this chapter. इसमें से ज़्यादा questions आते हैं. Calcium functions. What is the function of calcium for the proper bone growth? You are always asked, your parents always say, that we have to drink a lot of milk for proper bone growth and the growth of the teeth. Enamel. What is enamel? The outermost hardest covering of the teeth. No? Is that a bone? Deposits of calcium and phosphorus only. And now it's so interesting that it's not a bone, but still it is the hardest substance. So hard than a bone. If the bone is also not that hard as the enamel and the dentine. So when we are talking about bone, the teeth that we are talking about, it's not at all bony in nature. Then what is calcium also meant for muscle contraction? So at least 3 important functions for the bone growth, teeth, enamel, and muscle contraction. Now see, suppose when we are talking about normal muscle contraction, if calcium is deficient in your body, very often you will suffer from muscular cramps. Very often you suffer from muscular cramps. या तो भाषी में भी दे सकते हैं तो मैंने यहाँ भी आ गया तो मेरे लिए जी कल नंबर मेरा है तो मुझे उसको फिक्स what I was saying, so that's about calcium. What is about the deficiency diseases and deficiency disorder? Rickets. If a person is suffering from rickets, children suffer from rickets. Some child is suffering from rickets. What will be the condition? Improper bone and muscle growth. This child will always have the legs curved, bow legs. Improper bone and muscle growth. Then the chest will be comparatively smaller, जिसको Pigeon chest कहते हैं. Then improper bone and muscle growth, the legs and the arms will be much thinner. Muscle growth नहीं हो पाता because of the calcium deficiency. Take that word, underline that word, rickets. Sodium. Sodium. वैसे तो sodium you typically get from the salt. Sodium you get from salt. But are there any source of sodium? Are there any other source of sodium apart from salt? Are there any other? Quite a number of times, seafood are also sources of sodium. Remember. So now that we are talking about what is the major function of sodium? If a person is having deficiency of sodium, do you know what happens? Deficiency of sodium is thyroid is not exactly associated with deficiency of
thyroxine.
सोडियम बोला ना
अरे हाँ
आयोडीन सोडियम आपसे गोइटर
के लिए नाम इसे थायराइड बोला राइट थायराइड थायराक्साइन की डेफिशिएंसी होती है दैट आई वाज
I was not mentioning anything about vitamin.
हाँ मैम लेकिन I was saying that.
So you give us that. Now, when we are talking about simply you wasted these 2 minutes. Now we are talking about. I said we are talking about sodium. I asked you, sodium deficiency hota hai, then what is the most important problem people suffer from is improper coordination. Improper coordination meaning brain functions become difficult. Brain functions के लिए adequate amount of sodium and chlorides का होना बहुत जरूरी है. Very much needed. We don't realize that, but adequate amount of sodium. Quite a number of times in elderly people, what happens? The sodium level starts dropping because of the irregular type of food. No, quite a number of times because of medication and those who suffer from diabetes and all, they can't eat all the types of food. So what happens? That's the reason why the sodium level goes up and down, and they start suffering from memory loss. So very clear to understand that sodium is very much associated with brain functions. So see there. Acid-base equilibrium basically of the neurons we are talking about. Okay, what would happen if there's a deficiency? Underline muscular cramps, nerve impulse do not get transmitted. What is the meaning of impulse? Information. As of now, you understand that way. Impasse matlab information. Quite often in very old experience, nerve impulse does not get transferred. Even in sodium, potassium, and pump function, chlorine. Potassium, chlorine, sodium के related functions होते हैं. If it is given in potassium, that also will not be wrong because sodium, potassium, chlorine all three have got related functions. But sodium सबसे primary है. So that's the reason for elderly person we always keep on checking the sodium, potassium, chlorine. So sodium, muscular cramps. You know what is muscular cramps? पता नहीं क्या होता है muscular cramps? पानी पी के काफी आता है. Okay, that's a muscular cramp. Muscular cramp is say suppose you are running for marathon, or you are doing some strenuous muscular activity, or it's a sports day going on and you are almost touching the finishing line, and then you suddenly see there's a pain in your legs, and tremendous pain, then you cannot walk further. Muscular cramp, it pains, and then you take rest for a few minutes and then again revive. No? So क्या हुआ था? Muscles में क्या हुआ था? Muscles got contracted but could not relax. But when you are normally walking, running, muscle contract हो रहा है, relax हो रहा है, contract. So एक बार contract हो गया तो relax नहीं होगा, then only there will be severe pain in the muscles, muscular cramps, and that would also happen because of major deficiency of sodium in the body. Come to the next one, potassium. Sources, you may just read on your own sources. I said some of these you have to remember, some are overlapping. Potassium. Now, when we talk about the function of potassium, potassium is also necessary for the nerve and the muscle function, nerve muscle activity. You see a word there, neurotransmitter. Can you see a word there, neurotransmitter? What are neurotransmitters? These are chemical substances released from the neurons, which send messages further, from one neuron to another. Neurotransmitters keep passing. One neuron to another, neurotransmitters keep passing. And these neurotransmitters are carrying what? Information. The deficiency condition for potassium is almost the same like sodium. Impulse transmission gets disturbed. Next is we talk about phosphorus. For phosphorus, see there, synthesis of nucleic acid. Phosphorus. Phosphorus majorly where you get again in quite a large number of nuts and animal food. Phosphorus rich hota hai. And when you are talking about phosphorus, functions of phosphorus, synthesis of nucleic acid. Which nucleic acid we are majorly trying to understand? DNA. DNA, the nucleic acid of our chromosomes, nucleic acid. So synthesis of DNA ke liye potassium is very much necessary, and other energy-rich molecules. Which are the energy-rich molecules? ATP. ATP. NADP. At least ATP you try to remember. NADP is also another energy-rich molecule known as nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide, phosphate. Learn all these things detailed next year. So nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide, phosphate are all energy molecules that a cell produces. Mitochondria produces. No? So ATP, NADP, and DNA synthesis. This much at least you remember. DNA synthesis, ATP and NADP synthesis ke liye this is necessary. Then next is what is the deficiency condition? Condition if a person does not have very good amount of potassium. Soft bones. What do you have about soft bones?
Those are not strong enough.
So what will happen if a person has soft bones?
Very
smooth. Person will be prone to fractures. So I think you also must have forgotten how many number of times you must have fallen when you were a kid. No? Huh? Stephen Hawking, what happened? Soft bones, huh? And there are many, see, when we are talking about these wrestlers, quite a number of these wrestlers, no, that's true. And not only him, there are so many others also. That's the reason it's very surprising that they have the, no, obviously, I'm not going to give a pain to my body at all. There's a books and the pen and the pencil and the notebooks are things for worship. तो लात मारो उसको इसके बाद okay. So what I was saying is the function for phosphorus, the first line is important for you. That much of it you're able to write down. Formation of the DNA, ATP, and ATP. That much is enough for you. Soft bone we were talking about. Yes, we were understand that many players and athletes, very surprising, they have got soft bone, but that's the reason they always get addicted to various different type of stimulants and hormone injections temporarily to get the strength and the vigor. Now, next is magnesium. Magnesium again for tooth and bone eradication. Magnesium is not very important for exam point of view. Let us talk about now chlorine. Now, from this first list that I'm talking about, what is most common that you get in your exam? Sodium, potassium, calcium, and chlorine. Sodium, potassium, calcium, chlorine. Now we talk about chlorine. Again, if there is a deficiency of chlorine, quite similar like sodium, a deficiency of chlorine will also give muscular cramps. Again, what are some of the sources of chlorine? Salt, of course, and along with salt, along with salts come seafood also. Now we talk about micronutrients. This is more important than macronutrient study. Micronutrient. Sulfur is there. Sulfur for majorly there's a deficiency of sulfur. People start having the skin problems. Pigmentation will get decreased, and rashes and all these skin-related problems will be suffered. So from example, this magnesium and sulfur not very important. Come to micronutrients now. Iron. First I'll ask you to take what is very, very important. Iron, copper, iodine, fluorine. Okay, so these are very, very important. Now let us discuss iron. When you're talking about iron, सबसे important function, why is iron adequate necessary in our body? Why should be iron adequately present in our body for the formation of hemoglobin? Hemoglobin क्या करता है?
Gives us
Helps in the transport of oxygen from lungs to tissues, carbon dioxide from tissues to lungs. No, so that's the reason hemoglobin is also known as the respiratory pigment. We'll study in that chapter respiration. So respiratory pigment, hemoglobin. Deficiency होगा तो what will the person suffer from? Anemia underlying. Iron deficiency, person suffers from anemia. Now we talk about cobalt.
Amnesia means that temporary memory loss.
What is that?
Amnesia.
Next is cobalt. Cobalt, see there, when you're talking about the function of cobalt, majorly formation of blood cells. And if the blood cells are defectively formed, RBC, if I talk about the shape of the RBC, which is more or less concave and a little bit roundish, spherical, quite a number of times the RBCs generally start developing an elongated shape. WBC, the shape is not proper. So if there is deficiency of cobalt, the blood cell structure becomes little bit different. And that is what a condition known as pernicious anemia. So if the blood cell structures are different little bit, then the oxygen carrying capacity, carbon dioxide carrying capacity also will differ. So that condition is known as pernicious anemia. Pernicious anemia. Pernicious anemia is because of cobalt deficiency. Copper. When you are talking about copper, what is copper meant for? Copper is majorly helping in the production of melanin. Now, one feature of melanin, melanin, why is melanin necessary for our body?
And especially
complexion hai. Melanin also regulates our sleep. So if I talk about melanin, which is the skin cells, melanin. And say suppose we talk about, we are brown people, no? When I'm talking about people of our country, surrounding our country, melanin production always is associated with the environmental conditions, no? Temperature, if I talk about. Here, if I talk about our skin color is brown, British. If I talk about cooler countries, melanin production is much lesser because the temperature is predominantly light intensity temperature predominantly less. And if I talk about the African continents or the southern part of our country also, where the temperature light intensity is predominantly high always, so melanin production is more. So majorly melanin is something to do with your skin color. And skin color के साथ और additional functions in the body. Remember when we are talking
the melanin is darker the skin.
darker the skin. Even if I talk about that you have a fairer skin, and if you constantly keep on exposing yourself to bright sun in the month of May, the month of October, you'll see that you are developing that tanning and the skin is getting darker. No? So that is one thing. But when we are talking about the color of the skin, melanin doesn't have any other additional function to perform. Many related to skin, many other functions actually. Protection of the UV light, etc., etc. So there are many other functions to talk about. So we are talking about production of melanin, synthesis of enzymes. Oxidation, यहाँ पे cell oxidation, very simple as you can write up there. Cell oxidation meaning release of energy from a cell. That is what for the time being to understand. You will understand this in respiration, then you can ask this much more on this. Cell oxidation मतलब energy release का जो process, release of energy from a cell by itself. So that is oxidation. So again, if there is a copper deficiency, what will the person suffer from? Suffers anemia. We talk about now iodine, the most important iodine. Zinc, I missed out. Zinc, when we are talking about zinc, generally helps in release of variety of enzymes, and if there is a deficiency, the person may suffer from albinism. Retarded growth skin के problems तो हो ही सकते हैं, albinism भी हो सकता है, but otherwise albinism is a genetic disorder. But यहाँ पे when we are talking about zinc deficiency के वजह से the person's skin may start becoming white. That's not fairness, but patchy हो जाता है. Basic जो evenness of the color वो चला जाता है, and some regions brown, some regions white हो जाता है. That is why
unevenly white.
Unevenly white होता है. So that we cannot say it's fairness, but that is because of the massive deficiency of zinc in the body. Iodine, very very important. Because iodine generally helps in the release of a hormone thyroxine from the thyroid gland, जो neck में होता है thyroxine. And अगर thyroxine adequate production नहीं हुआ, then the lower neck region starts getting swelled up. जिसको goiter. So again, another concept is that people of the coastal areas. Are we people of the coastal areas?
It's not.
Yes. And here in the coastal areas, you will always come across people suffering from goiter is rare, as compared to people of the mountainous areas.
Even in the areas they would have food like alien.
So that's what I'm saying. Regions which are not very close to a water body, dry, mountainous areas, may people majorly suffer from goiter. As I already said, but seafood, we people of the coastal areas, we are dependent on so many other different types of seafood also. Na? So seafood से sodium chloride तो मिलता ही है, iodine भी मिलता है वहाँ. Because if we actually have to depend on iodine तो salt में भी मिलता है. You must have seen your mothers buying iodine, iodized. So iodized salt कितना खाएंगे salt entirely, ठीक है ना? So if you are depending on some different type of seafood, उसमें से भी थोड़ा आता है. Green leaves में से भी आता है. So you do green leaves and iodine, and the seafood is predominantly present in the coastal areas, and the dry areas is very less, almost nothing. And the soil is hardly having any iodine. So the crops and the fruits, whatever they eat, has almost no iodine. So how much of the iodine they can take along with the salt? That's the reason most of them, almost about 30-40% people are always going to have a deficiency of iodine. And that's why goiter is more prevalent that side. So iodine is very, very common that we're asked in the paper. Fluorine का भी होता है. हमारे टूथपेस्ट में fluorine होता है ना? नहीं होता? कौन सा पेस्ट यूज करते हो? पता भी नहीं है. कौन सा पेस्ट यूज करते हो? आप हम करके ब्रश करने जाते हो क्या? see that तुम्हारा line बात कहाँ पे रहता है वो भी नहीं पता कौन सा पे बीच का तो वो भी नहीं पता फ्लोरीन हमारा टूथपेस्ट पे होता नहीं है. So now that we are talking about brushing twice a day, should we brush 5 times a day? Our teeth is sparkle. Why? Excessive use of fluorine and deficiency of fluorine both will result in tooth decay. Excessive कभी नहीं करना 5 बार करने से हमारा teeth में shining नहीं हो जाएगा. And if you are not brushing even once or twice, and if you are not using fluorine-rich toothpaste, then also the tooth decay may happen. So when we are talking about deficiency में तो tooth decay होता नहीं है, overuse से भी tooth decay होता है. We talk about manganese. Manganese is majorly associated with poor bone development, not very important for the exam. Molybdenum is basically associated with molybdenum.
Molybdenum सिखाया clearly molybdenum बोलती है.
Pronounce molybdenum. It's molybdenum.
Always ma'am, it is catalyst ma'am. So promote the
Molybdenum. You can check the I always mention the molybdenum. So now when we are talking about molybdenum, it is always associated with what? Again, so from this table, what is important I told you for your exam, you may go through all, but to take a note and read and remember points of iron, cobalt, I said copper. Copper also. Did I say copper? No, copper. I didn't say copper. Cobalt add karo because conditions and everything you are asked always. Iron, cobalt, copper, and iodine. Fluorine. Choose this. Now we talk about vitamins. Vitamins we are little talking about. No vitamins. What are vitamins? Vital amines. Amines are what? Compounds of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. So when we are talking about carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, amines. These vitamins are actually increasing the function of variety of organs, variety of glands, helping in the secretion of enzymes. Let us talk about vitamins. Now, vitamins are of two categories. When we are talking about vitamins, what are the different category of vitamins? If I talk about vitamins now, vitamins are of two categories. What are the two categories of vitamins? Water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamins fall in two categories. First of all, I talk about water-soluble vitamins. What are the water-soluble vitamins? Next, I talk about fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins, when we are talking about water-soluble vitamins are water-soluble are A and C. Water-soluble are A and C. Here, for each and every vitamin, the specific term you have to remember. Water-soluble. Fat-soluble vitamins are B and P. So when we are talking B and E, vitamin E is also there. E भी है. What I say? Water-soluble is B, B, E. Water-soluble is so A, B, E. Water-soluble is A, B. Water soluble is B and C. Correct? B and C. B is divided into many other categories. So when I'm talking about categories of vitamins, water soluble, fat soluble. Fat soluble, when we try to understand fat soluble vitamins, these type of vitamins, the body cells or the absorption of these type of vitamins is a little bit difficult. Or if I say the other way, the process is lengthy to absorb these type of vitamins. Absorption of these type of vitamins right from our mouth, it can happen. Any type of food item rich in vitamin B, C, right from the mouth, the absorption can happen. Absorption means what? Absorption means directly enter into the blood. What is the difference between carbohydrate, proteins, fats, and the mineral vitamin that I talk about? Minerals and vitamins का कोई digestion हमारे बॉडी में नहीं होता है, जरूरत नहीं है, because They are already in their simplest form and that can enter into our blood right from our mouths. You are consuming cabbage, you are consuming lettuce, you are consuming pomegranate. So the iron component here of the pomegranate directly enters your blood right from the mouth or right in the mouth. Mineral or vitamin digesting enzymes are there in our body? No, not necessary. They are not there. They are not necessary because they are already in their simplest form, can directly enter into the blood. But when we are talking about carbohydrate, the bread that I'm eating, in the mouth itself, can the bread get digested to give rise to glucose? No, the entire process of digestion has to get all over the digestive system, and the process gets completed in the intestine. So the rice and the bread and the roti that we are eating, or the fruits that we are eating, the process of digestion gets completed either in the stomach or in the intestine. So just to understand, first of all, when we are now talking about minerals and vitamins, and these three, this needs digestion, this does not need digestion. Water soluble, B and C. Now we talk about fat soluble, A, G, and K. But B again can be categorized B1, B2, B3, B6, B5, B6, and then we talk about B9, B12. So when we are talking about, there are almost about 6 to 7 categories when we are talking about B. Let us learn some of them. इसमें भी सबसे important ये है deficiency disorder, which are the ones to understand. Let us start with the first one. Vitamin A, underline the word retinol. अब retinol, vitamin A जो है, vitamin A is majorly present in yellow and orange colored fruits and crops. Can you name one fruit or vegetable orange and yellow color? Orange. Banana. Orange. Banana. Banana. That's a hybrid. No, original one. Normal one. Papaya. Carrots. Carrots, yellow or orange of fruits and crops, they are rich in vitamin A. So that should always be included in our diet on a regular basis. Lemon is not a yellow fruit. What is lemon meaning?
Which category?
Citrus, C, vitamin C, citrus fruit. Sweet lime also C. Lemon is a fruit.
That's what I was asking. Which category does it come under?
C. Fruit. And belonging to or rich in vitamin C. Now, next is when we are talking about sweet lime, lemon, pineapple, all these come under the same category. Now, retinol, underline. Retinol. What are the chief functions? सबसे important function of retinol is to help in the synthesis of the visual purple in our body, that is known as rhodopsin. Check there, synthesis of the visual purple. Can you see that it's written there? Component of the visual purple in the retinal cells. What are retinal cells? Cells of the retina, of the eye. The eye has various layers. One such layer is the retina. Which is the most important layer, जिसमें image formation होता है. So now we are talking about the variety of cells. We are talking about the retinal cells, which is releasing the pigment rhodopsin. There's a pigment. That rhodopsin is purple in color, hence it is also known as a visual purple. Visual purple. So what will happen if a person does not eat adequate amount of A-rich food? Visual purple deficiency होगा. And if visual purple deficiency होगा, the person will have difficulty in different forms of vision. Underline night blindness, xerophthalmia. Night blindness. What do you understand by night blindness? If the intensity of light is a bit low, not only night, even during the day, light is inadequate, the person cannot have a sharp focus. You talk about a book, that appears blurred. You talk about the doors of the room, appears blurred. Any particular object appears. That sharp, distinct sharpness of the vision is not there. If little bit of intensity of light is low, night blindness, though it is called, it has nothing to do with night actually, only the dim intensity of light. Xerophthalmia, again underline that word. Cornea, what is cornea? It's the outer layer of the eye. Outermost layer of the eyeball, that is cornea. So xerophthalmia में क्या होता है? सबसे important disorder, सबसे important discomfort is dryness of the eye. Now, we don't even realize dryness of the eye. Now that we don't realize because there is adequate amount of a particular secretion known as the tears getting formed, and the tears at the same time there are some. No, tears is constantly formed because of certain glands that we have, the lacrimal glands, and there is some waxy substances which are constantly formed from the margins of the eyelids. So easily, how many number of times you are blinking per minute, you are not even aware, because it's happening so smoothly. But if a person is suffering from A deficiency, this blinking becomes painful because the rims become extremely dry, no oily secretion, and secretion of tears also becomes much lesser. So every time the individual blinks, it's a painful condition because the entire region is dried out condition. Underline night blindness, xerophthalmia. Move on to the next. Underline calciferol, vitamin D, calciferol, majorly help in calcium phosphorus absorption. Now, we had already come across minerals saying that what was the function of calcium and phosphorus? Bone growth and bone development. But if a person does not have B adequate, vitamin D है नहीं body में, या तो vitamin D deficiency है, but the person has adequate amount of calcium, but the person drinks a lot of milk and calcium rich food, phosphorus rich. Will the person still have proper bone, well developed muscles? No, because for absorption of the calcium and phosphorus, vitamin D should be there in the body, in the blood. So it is something like that. When you have beautiful clothes, you should also have a proper cover to keep it. When you have good number of books, you should read also those books. Otherwise, those books are just a waste. So it is something like that. When you are having these two nutrients, calcium, phosphorus, adequate amount of D is also necessary. Otherwise, calcium, phosphorus is a waste in our body. So underline the function. Chief function is neutralization of calcium and phosphorus. Neutralization, absorption, deficiency, what happens? Rickets. Underline. Deficiency condition, rickets. What is rickets? We already discussed. Next is osteomalacia. Osteomalacia basically happens in the elderly group, where the contraction of the muscles and movement, joints become very stiff. Movement becomes difficult. Osteomalacia. Tocopherol, vitamin E. Tocopherol, vitamin E, also known as tocopherol. What is it basically meant for? Tocopherol is majorly helps in prevents oxidation. Oxidation meaning breakdown of vitamin A, does not allow breakdown of vitamin A. But if I give you a similar function, tocopherol always helps in proper growth and development of the reproductive organs also in mammals, human. See there, the deficiency is written as sterility. Sterility. What is the meaning of sterility? Reproductive organs are present but cannot give rise to gametes. You have learned already gametes in the class chapter. No, what are gametes? Reproductive cells.
But it's in rats.
In mammals altogether. So we are talking about rats, but it is in mammals. Even in human, if there's a massive E deficiency can also result in partial sterility. Next, we talk about phylloquinone, vitamin K, phylloquinone, very, very important. Normal clotting, blood clotting. What is clotting? What is clotting? When should clotting happen? Clotting of the blood. Whenever you fall down, whenever there's a cut, the blood should not keep on oozing out. The blood should stop. Oozing out, the blood should stop. Within hours? Within seconds to a couple of minutes. That's normal. Within seconds to a couple of minutes, you're oozing. Now, seconds, if the cut is a little bit big, but still within minutes, clotting should happen, should start inside. Then you wash. When you are washing constantly, you're actually washing away the blood. You are washing away the blood. But within minutes, inside, in the inner region, the reaction should start. Now, when will the reaction start? Of course, in this case, a particular type of a blood cell known as platelets are there involved. On top of that, apart from platelets, the body should have adequate amount of calcium and vitamin K, both. So, इसमें अगर vitamin K की deficiency होगा, then also the clotting will be low, lesser, slower. प्लेटलेट डेफिशिएंसी होगा तो वैसे भी स्लो होना ही है. If platelets are there, calcium is there, vitamin K deficiency है, then also clotting will be much slower. Hemorrhage, I'm glad I got hemorrhage. What is hemorrhage? Delayed clotting and profuse bleeding. Hemorrhage matlab profuse bleeding. Now see, quite a number of people have certain type of disorder जहाँ पे deficiency of K majorly होता है किसी के body में, and that results in hemorrhage even in the internal organs, especially in athletes, especially in sports person, where because they are constantly with vigorous muscular activity and there is wear and tear inside the body much more than us. No, we are as it is moving very softly and delicately. They are always vigorously they are moving. No, so there are cuts and injuries inside. So vitamin K deficiency hoga, then there is blood loss inside the body. That is very dangerous.
मैंने चाहता नहीं था क्या हुआ जल्दी खा जल्दी कर देखो कैसे करते हैं ऐसे करके आप जल्दी जल्दी फास्ट
आपका बता